G'day legends, I hope that you're doing well and having a great day. Now, a few people have reached out saying to me, it sounds like that I'm unwell in yesterday's video, and yeah, I've come down sick again. Now, I've got a lot on my plate recently, and my immune system has really never recovered from the 13 months of chemotherapy that I've done. So I'm very susceptible to this, and I've come down unwell, as you can probably hear in my voice. So you'll hear me trying to breathe and coughing up a little bit. I apologize in advance, but it's just the way it is, and I just live with it. So, but first, we'll talk some news. After, then we'll have a look at the map. So let's have a look. Now, of course, in the center, we've got Ukraine, the capital of Kyiv. The red area occupied since 22, and the purple since 2014. This being Crimea and Donetsk. Here's Romania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia around here. So where we're going to go and where we've seen some major changes is in Bakhmut. And I'm guessing the title of this video is something along the lines of that. So today is the 4th of April, and mostly where you will be, being Europe or Australia, it will be the 5th. But in America, the day is the 4th. So let's just go back yesterday and we'll talk about what's happened. So let's go back to the 2nd actually. So 48 hours ago, we saw, Russia moving up here. This little nub out here, we'll call it, is where we saw Prigozhin on top of the building, and that building was flattened. But then yesterday, we saw a bit of a shift to the north and further west. And then today, we've seen this major gap really closing now at least 50% of the area west of the Mabutka River. And this is a major step, as of this pocket up into here, this Bakhmut, this eastern sort of pocket was holding for a long time and has now closed. And you can see that significant jump all the way to some of these main roads. Now, this little bit here, it does come over a sort of a second hill, as I've been in this region a few times. So let's compare this against the ISW map, and the ISW is showing a very, very similar. Now that we can't line up the roads too well, but what we will have a look at is where this road comes out to the east, and then there's three roads. So this comes out to the east, and then these three roads and up here. So it's painting a very similar picture. If anything is showing more on this northern side, has pushed out more in this direction. But we know that Bakhmut is in a pretty critical state. It has been in a critical state for a while, and I'm seeing a lot of posts from sources saying Bakhmut is holding. Well, I was talking about this yesterday. It's not holding. No one has complete control. No one is holding all of Bakhmut. But if we look at the percentages, it's greatly in Russia's favour of the amount actually being held by Wagner Group in this area. And this is why I pull up this map, because the transparent red is the city limits of Bakhmut and surrounding suburbs. And this area is what Ukraine's holding, and the transparent. So what we do know is that it is closing further and further west. And let's have a look. This is the Wagner sources map, and this map is very biased towards, the Russian side, as the other maps are biased towards the Ukraine side. But it does paint a very similar picture. Now, it does show more on the south, but if we look, this is the road we talk about that came out to the east and went up, and we can't exactly see the three in here, but we can see the train station, and it's painting a very similar picture. So if we come in here, and we can see this is where the train is, this is coming out to the right. So it is painting very similar. Now, I think the most reliable way, as I've spoken about many, many times, the most reliable way, I believe, is deep state mixed with Rybar, 50-50 of each, and then you have a pretty clear picture. Now, let's have a look. And I think that the Rybar is painting almost the exact same picture. So it does show some movement to the east here, where Ukraine is holding more to the east, but then this block coming out here. And this is the road that we talk about, turns to the east. So it is getting more and more critical. It's been critical for ages. Who are we kidding? And I think, we are kidding ourselves if we think that this isn't going to get worse before it gets better. So we know bodies are being just poured into here, and equipment's being poured in, and there has been advantages that I believe have actually given Russia the advantage recently on the weather. Because if we talk about weather, well, poor conditions, there's one, maybe two roads that Ukraine can get in and out of here, and Russia has a lot more options, holding more territory on this region around here. We're seeing videos of people choosing to leave. There's a very viral video going around now, I can't show you, I don't have it with me, of people getting evacuated with children, and I think it's just ridiculous. There are still people with children in these regions. Now, people stay in these regions for a whole range of things, but my opinion is if the West is pouring tens and tens of billions of dollars into Ukraine, there needs to be more effort put into actually getting these people out, because if it is a financial reason that they can't leave a war zone that has been getting shelled for 6-8 months, well, that needs to be looked at. But there are also a lot of reasons as well. A lot of people in the east of Ukraine, especially before the war, and a lot of, gone the other way, but especially before the war, a lot of people were on the pro-Russian side. And these regions still have people who are on the pro-Russian side of this. But let's have a look up and down the map and see if we've seen any other territorial change. So we'll come into Avdiivka, where we're seeing not much just to the north. We've seen some slight Russian gains, but that can just be corrections in the mapping too. Maybe over yesterday, and so minor corrections, but we haven't seen anything in Avdiivka, in Mariinka, haven't seen anything. And I've already looked in Vuhledar and Orikhiv, although we know to the north of Orikhiv, there are a lot of Ukrainian forces, building up for a southern offensive. Now, a lot of people are saying that they will drive a wedge down here in a way to cut off the west, the sort of southwest area, and cut off Crimea as well, as their only way in and out is the Kerch Bridge in here. Now, to the north, have we seen anything? And no, we haven't seen, at least on these maps, any territorial change. That said, we're definitely in a lull of the war. Yes, there's absolutely intense fighting all up and down the front line, and there are some territorial shifts, but we're not seeing these huge territorial changes. As, this is due to upcoming Ukrainian offensives. Both sides are amassing troops in areas for preparation, either for offensive or defensive works. We do expect to see quite a lot of movement soon, but I also do think that there's a real possibility that both sides may be so dug in and exhausted from this well over a year at war that we may see the war just go into like a stagnant situation, which is a similar situation to what we saw, post 2014, where, the lines sometimes move back and forth, but as far as large territorial gains, it's pretty stagnant. And that could definitely be the case. And then, there would have to be more talks about where do we go from there. That would mean a huge time extension in this war, and time doesn't really greatly favour either side. But what it does do is it extends the hardship for millions of people. Now, the British MOD has released this as well. So Russia is likely seeking to sponsor and develop alternative private military companies, PMCs, to eventually replace Wagner Group PMC in a significant combat role in Ukraine. This takes place in the context of high-profile feud between the Russian Ministry of Defense and Wagner Group. Russia's military leadership likely wants a replacement PMC that has more control over. However, no other known Russian PMC currently approaches Wagner's size or combat power. Russia likely sees continued utility for PMCs in Ukraine because they are less constrained by the limited pay levels and inefficiency, which hamper the effectiveness of the regular army. Russia's leadership probably believe heavy casualties amongst PMCs will be better tolerated by Russian society compared to regular military losses. We've spoken before on this, how PMCs have a definite financial advantage, as building a state army and keeping that army and keeping it fed and paid and equipped is very expensive because it's a full-time thing. But for things like this, you can raise a PMC, pay well, get equipment, and then you can collapse that after as a private business. Now, a lot of speculation recently has been coming that Gazprom is a gas giant. Gazprom is the largest company in Russia, and by all means an absolute gas giant. Now, its majority shareholder is the Russian government. Now, they're being rumoured to start a PMC. They've got lots of money, and they've got lots of interest from the government and personal interest on keeping Russia the way it is, and then rebrokering these deals with gas to the west. But PMCs have a lot of advantage. We've spoken about that recently too. I'll link that video below as well, because I dive into why PMCs for a lot of nations can be really important. We speak about that, you'll have a poorer country, say an African country, who doesn't have a large, powerful standing army. But if they've got an election, you can hire a PMC to come in, to get those votes, get that election, whatever, and then, move on from there. So doing that's a lot cheaper. And the analogy I always use is I can't afford a beach house. I don't think anyone can afford housing in the world at the moment, but I can't afford a beach house, but I could Airbnb one for a weekend, and it's a very similar deal to that. In 1994, a deal was brokered between the US, the UK, and Russia to remove all nuclear weapons from Ukraine in exchange for security guarantees from their signatories. Now this is known as the Budapest Memorandum, and you'll hear that thrown around a lot. Now, it's more in depth than this, but that's just a quick overview of what it was. Now, Clinton has said in a recent interview, President Bill Clinton, I feel a personal stake because I got them, referring to Ukraine, to agree to give up their nuclear weapons, and none of them believe that Russia would have pulled this stunt if Ukraine still had their weapons. Something important to say is that no side, the UK, US, or Russia, has actually upheld the agreement to these signatories under a Democrat government, and now under a Democrat government as well. These security guarantees have not come through to the extent that we thought. We know these companies give them a lot of money, but that's not a real security guarantee. Is it not guaranteeing from the other side? Now, there's been so many of these pacts and memorandums done, but due to so many circumstances, these have all failed in this region, leading to this all-out war with breaches from a lot of places, where you look at it from both sides. Of course, this doesn't give anyone the right to invade a country, but it's part of the history, and that is something important as well. Now, would these nukes actually have deterred Russia? Well, maybe, but the last thing we need is a nuclear exchange, and this is sort of ifs and buts. But that said, nuclear weapons are a great deterrent, and many will claim, and I agree, nuclear weapons have actually saved more lives than they have taken so far. This is the MAD treaty. This is the mutually assured destruction treaty, is that, well, if you fire one, we're all going to die, so no one fires one. And I think the big thing protecting Russia at the moment is the nuclear weapons. If Russia did not have and possess the amount of nuclear weapons to end the world 10 times over, I believe we would see NATO troops in the ground in Ukraine and, and striking things in Moscow, along those lines. I don't know, but it would, if they didn't have that ability and possess those weapons, it would definitely be on the cards. And this is why, countries after this will be like, hey, nuclear weapons are very important. Also, Finland today officially joined NATO. But that's it for me today, guys. I'm fairly out of it, but I really hope you guys are doing well. If you'd like to support me, there's links below because YouTube does not like me at all. But look after yourselves and have a great middle of the week. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.